Halospire Station did not merely orbit the gas giant Javara, it danced with it. The station was a marvel of the Galactic Coalition, a sprawling spire of chrome glass and durasteel that pierced the vacuum like a needle, spinning slowly to generate gravity. Outside the viewport, the storms of Javara churned in endless bands of violent apricot, and bruised violet a chaotic backdrop to the morning routine of Noah Cade. Noah stood in the kitchenette of compartment 429, frowning at a tomato. It was a real tomato grown in the hydroponic gardens of the agricultural ring, and it had cost him nearly 50 credits. He held the knife with the awkward determination of a man whose expertise lay in coding subroutines, not culinary arts. "You are staring at it like it is a bomb, Noah," a voice came from the doorway. Noah did not look up, though the corner of his mouth twitched upward. "Bombs are easier, Sarah. Bombs follow logic circuits. Vegetables are agents of chaos." Sarah Knight leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed over her chest. She was tall, her skin the color of pale moonlight on a frozen sea, contrasting sharply with her hair, which was as dark as the void between stars. She wore her standard gray tunic, but on her, it looked less like utility wear and more like royal attire. She watched him with eyes that were usually a soft, smoky gray, amused and unblinking. "It is just breakfast," she said, her voice carrying a melodic, slightly husky cadence that always made Noah's chest tighten. "You could have just synthesized toast." "And admit defeat to a kitchen appliance, never," Noah declared. He brought the knife down. It was a simple slip. The blade skidded off the waxy skin of the tomato and nicked the side of his index finger. "Ouch!" Noah hissed, dropping the knife. He shook his hand instinctively, a single bright bead of crimson welling up on the skin. "Damn it!" The reaction in the room was instantaneous. The air seemed to drop 5 degrees. Noah reached for a towel, but he paused when he sensed the silence behind him. He turned. Sarah had not moved, but her posture had shifted. She was no longer leaning casually. She was rigid, her spine a line of tension. Her head was tilted slightly to the side, and her nostrils flared just once, as if catching a scent carried on a gale. But it was her eyes that made Noah blink. For a fraction of a second, the smoky gray was gone, replaced by a flash of deep, luminescent ruby. It was not a reflection of the red tomato. It was an internal light, predatory and ancient. "Sarah," Noah asked, his voice softening with concern. "You okay? Don't tell me you're squeamish. You dissect alien frogs for a living." The tension snapped. Sarah blinked, and the gray returned, though she looked momentarily disoriented. She exhaled a breath she seemed to have been holding for a century. She moved toward him, not with the predatory speed of a moment ago, but with the hurried fussiness of a wife. "I am not squeamish," she said, her voice tight. She grabbed the first aid kit from the magnetic strip on the wall, her movements brisk. "I am just annoyed by your incompetence with sharp objects." She took his hand. Her fingers were cool, soothing against his warm skin. She wrapped the bandage around the cut with practiced precision, refusing to look at the drop of blood. She stared fixedly at the bandage, her jaw set. "There," she said, stepping back quickly, putting half the kitchen between them. "I will finish the tomato. You go get dressed. You are going to be late for the shift change." Noah looked at his bandaged finger, then at her. She was facing the counter, her back to him. He had seen that look in her eyes before, usually, when they were watching those terrible horror movies she loved to critique. He assumed it was a trick of the complex lighting systems of the station. "Thanks, Doc," he said, using the nickname he knew she hated. "Do not call me that. I am a xenobiologist, not a medical practitioner," she corrected automatically, though she didn't turn around. "Go, Noah." He lingered for a second, sensing a wall had gone up, invisible but impenetrable. He wanted to touch her shoulder to ask why she was trembling slightly, but he checked the chronometer on the wall. 7 o'clock. If he was late again, Supervisor Varn would dock his pay, and they needed those credits for the Eclipse Gala tickets. All right, Noah said. Love you. Love you, she replied. The words were soft, almost swallowed by the hum of the refrigerator. As Noah retreated to the bedroom, Sarah gripped the edge of the counter. Her knuckles were white. She stared at the knife where a microscopic smear of Noah's blood remained. Her throat burned with a thirst so dry and agonizing, it felt like swallowing sand. She closed her eyes, visualizing a mental vault, a technique she had practiced for 300 years, and shoved the hunger inside, locking it behind heavy iron doors. When she opened her eyes, they were gray again. But her reflection in the toaster chrome looked back at her with a hungry, knowing sneer. Hallow Spire Station was a city of vertical layers. The upper levels, the solar spires, were bathed in artificial sunlight, lush with greenery, and inhabited by species that thrived in the warmth, humans avians, and the reptilian solari. The lower levels, known as the umbra decks, were kept in perpetual twilight, a haven for the light-sensitive species, and the illicit trades that preferred the shadows. Noah worked in the Transit Grid Control Center, located at the equator of the station, the literal border between light and dark. He sat in his ergonomic chair, surrounded by 3 holographic monitors. The room buzzed with the chatter of a dozen other technicians, mostly high-functioning AIs or species with multiple processing brains. Noah was one of the few humans. Human support, his badge read, which was a polite way of saying the guy we call when the intuitive logic fails. Grid 17 is flickering again, said Kale, an insectoid technician with compound eyes that reflected the data streams. Logic sensors indicate hardware fatigue, but diagnostics are clear. It makes no sense. Noah spun his chair around. Let me take a look. He rolled over to Kale's console. To anyone else, the transit grid was a mess of code and energy distribution charts. To Noah, it was sheet music. He didn't just read the code. He heard it. A healthy system hummed a steady, major-key melody. A broken system sounded discordant, like a violin with a snapped string. Noah closed his eyes and placed his fingertips on the haptic interface pad. He didn't type commands. He let his mind drift into the data stream, visualizing the flow of power as a river. There, he thought, a stutter in the rhythm. It wasn't hardware fatigue. It was a harmonic resonance issue, a feedback loop, caused by the magnetic brakes on the maglev trains syncing up perfectly with the station's rotation. It is the timing, Noah murmured, his fingers dancing lightly over the pad. He wasn't rewriting code. He was conducting. He nudged a variable here, smoothed a jagged frequency there. Shift the braking cycle by 0.03 seconds and modulate the power dampeners. The angry red line on the monitor smoothed into a calm green wave. The discordant screech in his head resolved into a pleasant hum. Fixed, Noah said, opening his eyes. Kyle clicked his mandibles in surprise. How do you do that, human? You did not even run a simulation. It just felt off-key, Noah shrugged, spinning back to his desk. Machines have a heartbeat, Kale. You just have to listen. He took a sip of his lukewarm coffee, trying to downplay it. He didn't like drawing attention. He knew he was good, better than his pay grade suggested, but he chalked it up to spending his entire life around starship engines. His father had been a mechanic, his mother a navigator. Grease and charts were in his DNA. Suddenly, a pulse went through his console. It wasn't an alarm. It was deeper, a low-frequency thrum that vibrated the fillings in his teeth. Noah frowned. He looked at his screens, but everything was green. Yet he felt it. A distinct, questioning ping from deep within the station's architecture. It felt personal, like a hand reaching out in a dark room and brushing his shoulder. He placed his hand back on the pad. Hello, he thought, feeling foolish. The system responded. Not with text, but with a sensation of recognition. A cascade of ancient code scrolled across his tertiary monitor, moving too fast to read. It was a language he didn't know syntax that predated the Galactic Coalition standard by 1,000 years. User authorized. Steward lineage detected. awaiting command. The text flashed for a microsecond, then vanished buried under the standard transit grid interface. "Did you see that?" Noah asked, sitting up straight. "See what?" Cale asked, not looking up from his work. "Nothing," Noah said quickly. "Just a glitch." He rubbed his chest. The vibration hadn't stopped. It had settled in his sternum, a warm, heavy weight. He didn't know that 3 decks below a dormant subsystem had just woken up for the first time in centuries, blinking its sensors awake, because it had tasted the bioelectric signature of a master key. The lunch-hour rush on the promenade was a sensory overload. The smell of roasted meats from the carnivorous sectors mixed with the ozone tang of the energy shields. Holographic banners floated overhead, advertising the upcoming Eclipse Gala. Witness the harmony of shadow and light. The banners proclaimed in 6 languages. 200th anniversary of the treaty. Noah sat on a bench near a fountain that defied gravity, the water flowing upward into a collection sphere. He was eating a sandwich that claimed to be turkey, but tasted vaguely of algae. "I am telling you it is dangerous," a voice grumbled nearby. Noah glanced over. 2 Solari merchants were arguing their scales, shimmering under the artificial sun. "The gala is a security nightmare," the first one hissed. "Opening the Umbra decks to the general public, letting those shadow crawlers mix with decent folk." "It is tradition," the second argued weakly. "It is foolishness. You heard the reports. There are whispers of Noxian remnants in the outer sectors. If one of those energy leeches gets onto the station..." The merchant shuddered, his frills flaring in agitation. "My grandfather told me stories. They do not just kill you. They drink your very essence. They leave you a husk." "The Noxians are extinct," the second said. "The Great Purge finished them off 50 years ago." "Extinct or hiding," the first merchant spat. "They look like us. That is the worst part. They could be anyone. Your neighbor, your customer." Noah stopped chewing. He felt a cold prickle of unease. The anti-Noxian sentiment has been growing lately. The news feeds were full of fear-mongering editorials about the dark threat and purifying the galaxy. He thought of Sarah. Not that she was a Noxian that was ridiculous, but she was from the Umbra decks originally. She preferred the dark. She had that conditioned photosensitivity that made bright lights painful for her. People like these merchants would judge her just for wearing sunglasses indoors. He lost his appetite. He wrapped the rest of his sandwich and stood up. He hated politics. He just wanted to do his job, go home to his wife, and maybe figure out why the station's computer kept trying to shake his hand. That evening, the residential committee held a meeting in the sector atrium. The topic was the decoration budget for the gala, but the atmosphere was thick with the underlying tension of the station. Noah stood near the back waiting for Sarah. She had promised to meet him there after her shift at the biolab. The atrium was crowded. Humans, Twi'leks, and sturdy 4-armed Grotons mingled. Sarah arrived 10 minutes late, looking flustered. She wore a long, high-collared coat that covered her neck and arms despite the temperature control being set to a mild 20 degrees Celsius. "Sorry," she whispered, slipping her hand into his. "My sample cultures were acting up. One of the fungi tried to eat my data pad." "Did you let it?" Noah teased, squeezing her hand. "It was tempting. The data was boring anyway." Noah smiled, but he noticed she was wearing gloves. She never wore gloves indoors. "You cold?" he asked. "Just a chill," she deflected, turning her attention to the podium, where a pompous avian was squawking about the price of decorative streamers. Suddenly, the lights in the atrium flickered. A low groan echoed through the hull, the sound of metal under stress. "What was that?" Sarah asked, her head snapping up. "Power surge," Noah said, his technician brain kicking in. "Section 4. The load balancers are offline." A scream cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "The lift! My boy is in the lift!" Noah looked across the atrium. The glass-walled elevator tube that ran through the center of the sector had stalled between floors. Inside, a small blue-skinned child, a young Andorian, was pressing his hands against the glass, crying. The lights inside the car were dead. "Maintenance is on break," someone shouted. "We have to call Central." "That will take 20 minutes, the mother wailed. "The air scrubbers run on the main loop. If the power is out, he will run out of oxygen." Noah didn't think. He moved. "Noah," Sarah called, but he was already pushing through the crowd. He reached the maintenance panel at the base of the elevator shaft. It was locked, displaying a red error glyph. "Move back!" Noah shouted to the crowd. He placed his hands on the panel. He didn't have his tools. He didn't have an override key. But he had the music. He closed his eyes and reached out with his mind, searching for the rhythm of the elevator's motor. It was there, but it was faint, drowning in static. The safety clamps had engaged too hard, freezing the magnetic drive. "Open," he commanded silently. "Release." The sensation hit him harder than it had in the control room. It wasn't just a ping this time. It was a surge. He felt the station's energy rush into him, channeling through his arms like he was a lightning rod. The panel under his hands sparked. The red glyph turned green. "Override accepted, steward." The voice in his head whispered not a sound, but a thought. With a groan of protesting metal, the elevator jerked upward. The lights inside flickered back on. The crowd gasped as the car descended smoothly to the atrium floor. The doors slid open, and the mother rushed in to grab her child. Cheers erupted. Noah stepped back, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. He felt drained, as if he had just run 10 kilometers. "How did you do that?" a bystander asked, clapping him on the back. "The panel was dead." "Just percussive maintenance," Noah lied breathlessly, hiding his trembling hands in his pockets. He looked for Sarah. The lights in the atrium flickered one last time as the main grid stabilized. For a second, total darkness fell. Then, the emergency floods kicked in, bathing the room in harsh white light. Noah saw her standing near the large viewing window that looked out into space. She was staring at him, her expression unreadable. But in the reflection of the glass behind her, Noah saw something that made his blood run cold. The reflection wasn't Sarah. It was a silhouette of pure shadow, a void in the shape of a woman. And where her eyes should have been, 2 burning red stars flared with an intensity that pierced the glass. Her mouth was slightly open, revealing teeth long, needle-thin, and terrifyingly sharp. Noah blinked, shaking his head. The lights stabilized fully. The reflection was gone. It was just Sarah, looking pale, and worried, her gray eyes wide. "Noah." She ran to him, checking him for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "That surge, it was massive." Noah looked at her then, over her shoulder at the glass. Just the reflection of the room. Just a trick of the light. Stress. He had been working double shifts. "I'm fine," Noah said, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. "Just lucky." Sarah looked at him, and for a moment he thought she knew what he had seen. She reached up to touch his face, but stopped, her gloved hand hovering inches from his cheek, before dropping to her side. "Let us go home," she said quietly. "Too much excitement for one night." Deep in the bowels of Hallowspire, in a sector that did not appear on the public maps, Maylor Draith sat on a throne made of salvaged starship hulls. The room was pitch black to human eyes, but to him it was textured in shades of thermal violet and ultraviolet. He was ancient, his skin like cracked parchment stretched over bone, his hair a mane of white filaments that floated in the zero-gravity field he maintained in his sanctum. A hologram hovered before him. It was a grainy recording from a security camera in the residential atrium. He watched the human Noah Cade touch the panel. He watched the energy spike, a signature so pure and bright it blinded the sensor for a microsecond. "The anchor," Maylor rasped. His voice sounded like grinding stones. "After 3,000 years, it is awake." He rewound the footage. He zoomed in, not on Noah, but on the woman standing in the background. He froze the frame at the moment of the blackout. The camera, possessing different sensors than the human eye, had captured the heat signature. The woman's body temperature had dropped to near absolute zero in that split second, a defensive reflex of a high-tier predator preparing to strike. Mailer smiled, revealing a mouth full of serrated fangs that made the reflection Noah had seen look tame. "And you," Mailer whispered, tracing the woman's face on the hologram. "I wondered where you had gone, Scarlet Star. Hiding in plain sight. Playing house with the key to our destruction." He tapped a command into his console. "Captain Vorian," he said into the comms. "My lord," a voice crackled back. "Prepare the extraction team. The Eclipse Gala will be more entertaining than we anticipated. I have found the Star Eater, and she has brought me a gift." Back in compartment 429, the adrenaline had faded, leaving a comfortable, if slightly awkward, silence. Noah and Sarah stood on the small balcony that jutted out into the void. The great curve of Jovara filled the sky, blocking out the stars. "I bought this for the balcony," Noah said, reaching into a bag he had brought from the meeting. He pulled out a traditional eclipse lantern. It was a sphere designed to mimic the event. One half was glowing with a warm golden light. The other half was matte black, absorbing the light around it. "Tacky," Sarah smiled, leaning against the railing. "But charming." "It represents balance," Noah recited the brochure line mockingly. "Light and dark holding hands, singing Kumbaya." He held the lantern up to the hook on the ceiling. "Which way should it face?" Noah asked. "Light side out or dark side out?" Sarah looked at the lantern. Then she looked at the infinite darkness of space, and then at Noah standing in the warm glow of the apartment lights. "Dark side out," she said softly. "Why don't you want to see the light?" "If the dark side faces out," Sarah said, reaching up to steady the lantern as he hung it. "It shields us from the glare. We can stay in the shadows, but we still have the warmth inside." She smiled, a sad, fragile thing. "It is safer in the shade, Noah." Noah finished hanging the lamp. He turned the black hemisphere to face the void, leaving the golden side casting a soft, amber glow over the balcony. "Okay," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Dark side out, but you're still stuck with me in the light." Sarah rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady, rhythmic thumping of his heart. It was the most delicious sound in the galaxy. It was a drumbeat of life, pumping gallons of rich, vibrant vitae through his veins. Every instinct in her biology screamed at her to tear into him, to drain him dry to feast, as she had feasted on armies a millennium ago. She closed her eyes, fighting the monster inside with every ounce of love she had for this clumsy, brilliant, oblivious man. "I know," she whispered into his shirt. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Above them, the lantern spun slowly in the artificial breeze. Gold and black, predator and prey, husband and wife. And in the distance, the first warning lights of the Eclipse Gala began to blink, signaling the coming of a shadow that would swallow them all. The bathroom mirror was fogged with steam, blurring the reflection of the woman gripping the edge of the sink. Sarah Knight stared at her own hands. They were trembling, a subtle vibration that traveled from her fingertips up to her shoulders. On the pristine white counter sat a small, nondescript vial made of gray polymer. It was empty. It had been labeled Nutrient Supplement Type V, a polite euphemism used in the Umbra decks for synthetic vitae. It was a chemical cocktail designed to mimic the nutritional properties of hemoglobin and plasma, engineered to keep species like hers from starving without requiring a living host. Sarah despised it. It tasted like copper wire dipped in stagnant water. Worse than the taste was the inefficiency. A month ago, one vial would have quelled the burning ache in her stomach for 3 days. Now she had consumed 2 in the last 6 hours, and the hunger was still there, prowling behind her ribcage, like a caged predator pacing the length of its cell. Her body was rejecting the synthesis. It wanted the real thing. It remembered the scent of the drop of blood on Noah's finger from the morning prior, and the memory alone made her saliva glands ache. "Get it together, Saris," she whispered to the mirror, using a name she had not spoken aloud in 2 centuries. "You are a civilized biologist. You are not a monster." She splashed cold water on her face, hissed, as the temperature shock hit her heightened nerves, and composed herself. When she walked out into the small living area, the predator was locked away, replaced by the loving, slightly sarcastic wife. Noah was sitting at their small dining table, his head in his hands. A holographic schematic of a sanitation drone hovered in front of him, spinning lazily. He looked defeated. "The drone again?" Sarah asked, moving to the kitchenette to brew tea she wouldn't drink. "It is not the drone," Noah sighed, swiping the hologram away. "It is the department head. Dr. Aris dismissed my report on the grid variance. Again. He told me that human intuition is cute, but they prefer Solari algorithms." Noah leaned back, the chair creaking under his weight. He looked small in the vastness of the station's hierarchy. "I feel like a glorified janitor, Sarah. I am fixing leaks and patching code while everyone else is calculating slip space trajectories. I am just a human support unit in a galaxy of geniuses." Sarah placed a mug of steaming kava root in front of him. She stood behind him, wrapping her arms around his neck, resting her chin on his shoulder. She could hear the blood rushing through his carotid artery, a steady, rhythmic thrumming that was deafening in the quiet room. She held her breath for a second, then exhaled slowly. "You are not just a support unit," she said, her voice fierce. "Those geniuses look at the code and see numbers. You look at it and see a story. You hear music where they hear noise. That is not lesser Noah. That is rare." Noah chuckled, a dry, self-deprecating sound. "Tell that to Dr. Aris. He thinks I am hallucinating." "Aris is a pompous windbag with the emotional range of a toaster," Sarah stated flatly. Noah laughed, reaching up to squeeze her hand. "You always know what to say. But seriously, sometimes I regret saying no to that recruiter from the Strategic Corps. Back when I was 20. They wanted me for deep space navigation." Sarah stiffened slightly. "Why did you say no? You never told me the full story." Noah stared into his dark mug. "I was on Station Delta 9 when I was a kid. Before the retrofit. There was a breach in the hull. A structural failure that the sensors missed. I lost my little sister to the vacuum." The room went silent. The hum of the air recyclers seemed to grow louder. "I froze," Noah continued, his voice quiet. "I saw the warning light a second before it happened. I felt the vibration in the floor. But I didn't act. I was just a kid, but I knew something was wrong, and I didn't say anything because I thought the adults knew better. I didn't join the Corps because I didn't trust myself with that kind of responsibility again. Fixing toilets and train tracks feels safer. Less at stake." Sarah's heart, a slow, beating, powerful organ, ached for him. She pressed her cheek against his hair. She knew about guilt. She knew about the weight of lives lost because of a moment of hesitation, or worse, a moment of hunger. "You are not that child anymore," Sarah whispered. "And you are worthy of more than you think. You are the most brilliant man I have ever met." "And I am the one who is unworthy," she thought. "If you know what I have done, if you knew how many sisters I have taken from their brothers to feed this fire inside me." "Thanks," Noah said, turning his head to kiss her cheek. She pulled away slightly faster than intended, the scent of him suddenly overwhelming. "We need a distraction," she declared, moving to the couch. "It is Friday. Movie night. I picked the film." Noah groaned, standing up. "Let me guess. Another masterpiece from the Earth Archives, Dracula Resurrection," Sarah announced with a grin that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Rated 90% on the Classic Horror Index." 90% of critics were clearly drunk, Noah muttered, but he followed her. 2 hours later, the credits rolled on a holographic screen that projected the movie into the center of the room. Noah was throwing popcorn at the projection of the villain, a vampire with a cape so high it defied gravity. "Okay, first of all," Noah said, pointing a finger at the fading image. "Aerodynamics. He turns into a bat, but his mass stays the same. He would be a 50-kilogram bat. He wouldn't fly. He would plummet like a stone." Sarah was curled in the corner of the couch, nursing a glass of water. "That is your complaint, physics." "It is a valid complaint." "My complaint is the teeth," Sarah said, pointing at her own mouth. "Look at those fangs on the screen. They are fixed. How does he close his mouth without puncturing his lower lip? It is impractical biomechanics. Real predatory evolution would favor retractable incisors. Like a viper. Or you know something similar." She caught herself realizing she was getting too technical. Noah looked at her amused. "You have put a lot of thought into vampire dentistry." "I am a biologist," she shrugged, feigning casual interest. "Form follows function. Also, the skin. Why is he so pale? If he is dead, the blood settles. He should look bruised. Unless he is circulating the stolen blood, in which case he should be flushed with color after a meal." "You are ruining the magic, Sarah," Noah teased. "Next, you are going to tell me they don't actually hate garlic." "Garlic is actually an anticoagulant," Sarah muttered. "It would theoretically make the blood thinner and easier to drink." "A vampire would love garlic," Noah laughed, shaking his head. "Remind me never to get bitten by you. You would critique the flavor profile." Sarah's smile faltered. "I promise, Noah. I will never bite you." The promise hung in the air, heavy and solemn. To break the sudden tension, Noah stood up and stretched. "Come on. My brain is rotting from bad plotting. Let's go for a walk. I need real food. The popcorn isn't cutting it." "The Umbra decks," Sarah suggested, her eyes lighting up. "The night market is open." Noah hesitated. The Umbra decks were darker, colder, and filled with species that made the average human nervous. But he knew Sarah loved it there. It was the only place on the station where the lights were dim enough for her to take off her tinted lenses. "Lead the way, creature of the night," Noah said. The Umbra decks felt like a different world. The ceilings were higher here, painted a matte black, to simulate a night sky. The illumination came from bioluminescent moss, hanging from the architectural struts, and the neon glow of market stalls. The air smelled of ozone, exotic spices, and damp earth. Noah walked hand in hand with Sarah. She seemed to expand in the darkness. Her posture was straighter, her stride more fluid. She had removed her glasses, and her gray eyes reflected the neon pinks and blues of the market signs. They stopped at a stall run by a Groton chef who was grilling skewers of meat that Noah couldn't identify. He bought two, assuming they were chicken adjacent. "So," Noah said, chewing on the skewer, as they walked along a viewing gantry that overlooked the lower docking bays. "I told you my tragic backstory. Your turn. You never talk about your childhood. Just that you were educated off-world." Sarah looked out at the docking bays where massive freight haulers were unloading cargo containers the size of houses. "It is not a happy story," she said softly. "It doesn't have to be happy. It just has to be yours." Sarah took a breath. She decided to tell him the truth, wrapped in the safety of a fable. "Once upon a time," she began, her voice taking on a storytelling cadence. "There was a girl born in a world of endless twilight. Her people were hungry, not for food, but for life. They believed they were cursed by the stars." Noah chewed slowly, listening. "The girl was special," Sarah continued, her gaze distant. "She was born with a capacity for hunger that frightened even the elders. They took her from her parents. They trained her. They sharpened her like a weapon. They told her that her hunger was a gift, a way to bring order to the galaxy. They made her a queen of ashes." She paused, watching a service drone buzz by. "But the girl didn't want to be a weapon. She wanted to be quiet. She ran away. She ran for a very long time across oceans of stars. She changed her name. She changed her face. She tried to forget the taste of the ashes. She turned to look at Noah. And then she met a mechanic who made terrible jokes about vegetables. And for the first time in 1,000 years, she wasn't hungry for power. She was just happy. Noah stopped walking. He looked at her, his expression tender. He assumed she was speaking in metaphors dramatizing a strict upbringing or a difficult family life. "That is a good story," Noah said softly. "But the ending needs work." "Oh," Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, the girl shouldn't just be happy. She should be free. She doesn't have to run anymore." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to believe him, but deep down, the hunger scratched at the door of her mental vault. She had not fed properly in weeks. The synthetic blood was failing. She had spent the last 3 nights prowling the waste disposal sectors, draining the residual energy from discarded plasma batteries, just to keep her hands from shaking. It was a wretched existence. "Free," she repeated, tasting the word. "Yes, that would be nice." Before the moment could deepen, Noah's comms unit beeped. A harsh, urgent sound. He checked the display. "It is Captain Saul's office, and an automated alert from the Corps." "The Eclipse Corps," Sarah frowned. "It is almost midnight. Supervisor Varn is sick. They need someone to run the final diagnostics on the gravitational lens before the gala tomorrow. Since I am the human support who fixed the elevator, I guess I am the lucky winner." Noah sighed, looking at his half-eaten skewer. "Date night over." "Go," Sarah said, nudging him. "I will pack you a real dinner and bring it down to the control room in an hour. You can't calibrate a star on an empty stomach." "You are the best," Noah kissed her quickly, and ran toward the transit tubes. Sarah watched him go. Once he was out of sight, her smile vanished. She leaned over the railing, staring into the abyss of the maintenance shafts below. She could smell it, a faint metallic scent of raw energy leaking from a conduit somewhere down there. She needed to feed. Just a little. Just enough to be strong for him. She vaulted over the railing, dropping into the darkness with the silent grace of a falling leaf. The Eclipse Corps control room was a cathedral of technology. In the center of the vast spherical chamber sat the core itself, a contained singularity, a miniature black hole encased in a magnetic field, used to manipulate the light of the star Javara to create the artificial eclipse. Noah sat at the primary console alone. The night shift crew was skeletal, just him and 2 security droids stationed at the blast doors. He was humming to himself, his fingers flying over the haptic interface. The music of the core was overwhelming here, a deep baritone choir that vibrated in his bones. But tonight, there was a disagreement, a sharp, screeching violin note hidden in the bass. "That is not right," Noah muttered. "Sector 7 harmonic is off by 0.4%. He tapped the screen. "Computer isolate Sector 7. Run a Level 5 diagnostic." "Access." Denied. The computer chimed. "Security. Override in effect." Override by who? Before the computer could answer, the blast doors hissed open. Noah spun around expecting Sarah with dinner. Instead, 5 figures marched in. They wore matte black combat armor and full-face helmets that scrambled sensors. They carried plasma rifles. "Hey," Noah stood up. "This is a restricted area. Who are you?" The lead intruder didn't speak. He raised a gauntleted hand and the 2 security droids at the door exploded in a shower of sparks and metal. Noah scrambled back, tripping over his chair. He hit the emergency alarm button on his console, but nothing happened. The lines had been cut. "Secure the console," the leader commanded. His voice was synthesized deep and distorted. "Plant the parasite." 2 of the mercenaries moved toward the core housing. The leader walked toward Noah. "You are the mechanic," the leader said. "Cade." "I am just the maintenance guy," Noah stammered, holding up his hands. "I don't know any codes. I'll just fix the lights." "You are the variable," the leader said, raising his rifle. "Mailer sends his regards. Noah squeezed his eyes shut. He thought of Sarah. He thought of the unfinished tomato. The air in the room suddenly changed. The pressure dropped. The lights overhead shattered, plunging the room into darkness illuminated only by the swirling purple glow of the singularity in the center. A sound echoed through the chamber, a low, feral growl that didn't sound like it came from a human throat. Thwack. The sound of impact was wet and heavy. "Contact!" one of the mercenaries shouted. "Rear flank, something is—" His voice was cut off by a gurgle. Noah opened his eyes. He couldn't see much in the gloom, just the silhouettes of the mercenaries against the purple light of the core. But then he saw it. A blur of motion faster than the eye could track. A shadow, darker than the room itself. It moved across the ceiling, defying gravity, and dropped onto the mercenary nearest to the core. There was a flash of red, two glowing eyes that left trails in the dark like tracer fire. "Open fire!" the leader screamed. Plasma bolts seared through the air, illuminating the room in strobing flashes of blue. In those flashes, Noah saw fragments of a nightmare. He saw a woman, or the shape of a woman, moving through the barrage. She didn't dodge. She flowed. A plasma bolt hit her shoulder, and she didn't even flinch. She grabbed a mercenary by the neck and threw him across the room with the casual effort of tossing a pillow. He hit the bulkhead with a bone-shattering crunch and didn't move. The leader turned his rifle on the shadow. "Die, leech!" he fired. The shadow vanished. Instantaneously, the leader was lifted off his feet. He dangled in the air, clawing at an invisible hand gripping his throat. In the purple light of the singularity, Noah saw her face. It was Sarah. But it wasn't. Her skin was translucent, revealing veins that pulsed with violet light. Her mouth was open, lips pulled back to reveal needle-sharp fangs that dripped with something dark. But it was the eyes that froze Noah's heart. They were the burning red suns he had seen in the reflection. She looked at the mercenary leader with absolute cold disdain. "You are trespassing," she hissed. The voice was layered like three people speaking at once. She threw him. He flew past Noah and smashed into the main control console, shattering the screen. The room fell silent, save for the hum of the core and the heavy breathing of the mercenaries groaning on the floor. Noah sat frozen on the ground. "Sarah," he whispered. The figure near the core froze. The red eyes snapped toward him. For a second, the predator was looking at prey. Noah felt a primal urge to run, to hide, to scream. Then the red faded. The violet veins dimmed. The figure stumbled, dropping to one knee. "Noah!" Sarah's voice came weak and terrified. "Don't look." Suddenly, the emergency lights kicked in. The red strobe bathed the room in a bloody warning glow. The blast doors opened again, and a squad of station security led by a tall woman in a crisp uniform stormed in. "Clear the room!" the woman shouted. "Secure the hostiles!" Sarah was already moving. She was back in her normal shape, though her coat was torn at the shoulder, and she was panting heavily. She scrambled over to Noah, grabbing his shoulders. "Are you hurt?" she asked frantically. Her eyes were gray again, but wide with panic. "Did they touch you?" "I know," Noah stammered, staring at her. "Sarah, you just—" "I used the distraction," Sarah lied, her voice trembling. "I hit the emergency override on the gravity plates. I threw them off balance." It was a terrible lie. Noah looked at the mercenary embedded in the console. No gravity plate glitch did that. "Noah," Sarah gripped his face, forcing him to look at her. "Please, I just wanted to protect you." Before he could answer, the woman in the uniform marched over. It was Captain Rhea Saul. She had skin like polished obsidian and gold cybernetic implants running along her jawline. "Technician Cade," she barked. "Report. What happened here?" Noah looked at the captain, then at Sarah. Sarah's eyes were pleading. She looked small, now terrified. Not the monster from seconds ago. "Terrorists," Noah said, his voice raspy. "They tried to sabotage the core. The system malfunctioned. Gravity flux. They took themselves out. Captain Saul looked at the unconscious mercenaries, then at the shattered console, and finally at Sarah. Her cybernetic eye whirred, zooming in on the tear in Sarah's coat. A gravity flux, Saul repeated skeptical. Convenient. She walked over to the main server bank. I will need to review the security logs. Sarah went rigid. The logs are corrupted, Noah said quickly. He stood up, his legs shaking. The leader, he smashed the console. He fried the local buffer. Captain Saul narrowed her eyes. She tapped the console. Static. We will see, Saul said. Medical is on the way. Don't leave the sector. She turned to her squad. Sweep the perimeter. I want to know how 5 armed hostiles got this close to a singularity. The next morning, the Hallow Spire rumor mill was spinning faster than the station itself. Attempted sabotage at Eclipse Core, the headlines screamed, but the subheadlines were worse. Security. Leak red-eyed phantom spotted rumors of Noxian assassin on station. Noah sat in the small interrogation room of the security sector. He had been there for 3 hours. He wasn't under arrest technically, but he wasn't free to leave. The door slid open. Captain Saul walked in carrying 2 tablets. She sat down opposite him. You are a terrible liar, Noah Cade, she said without preamble. Noah swallowed dryly. I don't know what you mean, Captain. Sewell slid one of the tablets across the table. It showed a still image. It was blurry, recovered from a damaged backup node. It showed the control room in the dark. In the center was a smear of motion, a silhouette with glowing red eyes. Ballistics report says the mercenary leader had his ribs crushed by an impact force equivalent to a hydraulic press, Saul said calmly. No human did that. No gravity plate did that. She leaned forward. I know what that is. I fought in the border wars. That is a Noxian combat form. Noah's heart hammered against his ribs. So everyone says there are remnants hiding out. The remnants are weak, starving, scavengers, Saul said. This, she tapped the image. This was an apex, a high-caste warrior. We haven't seen one of those in 50 years. She slid the second tablet across. It displayed lines of code. This is the code from the Eclipse Core after the attack, Saul said. It is changing, rewriting itself. It is inserting commands in a language we can't translate. But you, she looked at him intensely. My technicians tell me you fixed the elevator yesterday by touching it. They say you hum along with the engines. I am just a good mechanic, Noah said defensively. You are hearing the station, Saul corrected. And the station is talking back. She stood up and walked to the window. I don't care about your wife, Noah. Noah froze. Saul turned around. I am not blind. I saw the way she looked at you. I saw the blood on her coat that wasn't hers. If she is what I think she is, she should be in a containment cell. She saved my life, Noah said, his voice low but steady. And she saved the Core. If she wanted to hurt people, she could have killed everyone in that room. Perhaps, Sewell said. Or perhaps she is waiting for the gala. A buffet of 3 million souls. She isn't like that, Noah snapped. Then prove it, Sewell said. Help me. This code, the terrorists planted a parasite, but the Core is fighting it. I need you to translate the fight. I need you to tell me what the station is afraid of. And if I do, then I lose the blurry photo of the red-eyed woman. It gets corrupted during transfer. It was blackmail, but it was also a lifeline. Fine, Noah said. I will look at the code, but leave Sarah out of this. While Noah was bargaining with Saul, Sarah was pacing the living room of their apartment. The news feeds were playing in the background. Citizens are advised to report any suspicious activity. Anti-Noxian sentiment is at an all-time high following the sighting. She checked her bag. It was packed. A few clothes, a stash of credits, a portable energy shield. She had to leave. She had almost exposed herself last night. She had almost lost control. When she had tasted the blood in the air, The urge to rip that mercenary apart hadn't just been protective, it had been pleasurable. That terrified her more than the police. She looked at the wedding photo on the mantel. Noah, looking uncomfortable in a formal suit. Her smiling with closed lips. "I am sorry, Noah," she whispered. "I can't let you be the husband of a monster." She picked up the bag. The door chime rang. Sarah froze. She slid the bag behind the couch. "Who is it?" "Maintenance," a young voice called out. "Filter check." Sarah opened the door a crack. It wasn't maintenance. It was a group of 3 humans. They wore armbands with the symbol of the pure light, a radical anti-alien group. They looked angry. "We heard a noise," the leader, a thick-necked man, sneered. "Thought maybe you had some pests in here, since your husband likes saving alien trash." Sarah stood in the doorway. She was wearing a loose sweater and her tinted glasses. She looked harmless. "My husband is at work," she said softly. "Please leave." "You wear sunglasses inside?" the man asked, stepping closer. "What are you hiding, lady eyes a little sensitive?" He reached out to grab her glasses. Sarah didn't move. She could have snapped his wrist in 3 places before his brain registered the pain. She could have thrown him down the hallway. But there were cameras in the hall, and she was trying to be human. She flinched back, letting him knock the glasses off her face. They clattered to the floor. Sarah kept her eyes squeezed shut, turning her face away. "Hey!" a voice shouted from down the hall. It was Noah. He was running toward them, flanked by 2 security drones provided by Saul. "Get away from my door!" Noah yelled. The thugs looked at the drones, then at Noah. "Just a neighborhood watch check, Cade. Keep your freakish pets under control." They spat on the floor and walked away. Noah rushed to Sarah. He pulled her inside and slammed the door lock. "Did they hurt you?" He was breathless, his hands checking her arms. Sarah opened her eyes. They were gray but rimmed with red irritation. She was shaking. Not from fear, but from the effort of not killing 3 men. "I have to go, Noah," she said, her voice breaking. "I have to leave the station." "What? No." Noah grabbed her hands. "Why?" "Because I am dangerous," Sarah shouted, pulling away. "You saw what happened at the core? You saw what I am. And those men, if they had pushed me 1 second longer, I would have painted the walls with them. I can't stay here. I will destroy you." Noah looked at her. He didn't see a monster. He saw his wife, terrified of herself. "You didn't hurt them," Noah said firmly. "You held back. That proves you aren't a monster, Sarah. A monster wouldn't care." "It is getting harder to care," she confessed, tears leaking from her eyes. Tears that were slightly too viscous, slightly too dark. "The hunger is getting worse. The synthetic isn't working. Mailer, he is here. I can feel him. He is waking up the darkness in me." "Then we fight it," Noah said. He reached out and took her face in his hands, ignoring the dark tears. "Captain Saul knows something is wrong with the core. She thinks Mailer planted something. I am going to find it. I am going to fix it." "You can't fix this," Sarah sobbed. "It is an ancient war, Noah. You are just a human." "I am an anchor," Noah said. The words came out before he realized what they meant. Sarah went still. "What did you say?" "The station." Noah rubbed his chest. It calls me that. Steward, anchor. Saul thinks it means I can talk to the system. If I can talk to it, maybe I can purge Mailer's parasite. Maybe I can stop whatever he is planning for the gala." He looked her in the eye. "I am not letting you run. You said dark side out, remember. You protect me from the dark. I keep you in the light. That is the deal." Sarah looked at him. The love she felt was a physical ache sharper than the hunger. She dropped her head onto his shoulder, sobbing quietly. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. One more day. We save the gala. Then we decide." Noah held her tight, staring at the wall. He was terrified. He was in over his head. But he had the smartest woman in the galaxy in his arms, and a station that sang to him. One more day, Noah agreed. Outside the window, the giant holographic countdown for the eclipse gala reached 0 hours. The artificial sun began to dim. The eclipse was beginning. And deep in the core, the parasite code finished compiling. The music in Noah's head shifted from a melody to a war drum. The great observation dome of Hallowspire Station was a masterpiece of transparent aluminum and arrogance. It spanned 10 kilometers across the upper hemisphere of the station, offering an unobstructed view of the gas giant Jovara and the small artificial star that orbited it. Tonight, that view was the most expensive in the galaxy. The eclipse gala was in full swing. The air inside the dome smelled of expensive perfume ozone and the distinct, crisp scent of money. Delegates from 100 systems mingled, holding flutes of sparkling nectar. The dress code was celestial formal, which meant an abundance of shimmering fabrics, gravity-defying capes, and bioluminescent jewelry. Far below the festivities in Auxiliary Control Room, B. Noah Cade tugged at the collar of his uniform. It was too tight. "Auxiliary Control," Noah muttered to the empty room, also known as the broom closet with a monitor. He was not invited to the party. While Captain Rhea Saul and the High Council sipped wine under the stars, Noah was stuck 3 levels down, tasked with monitoring the thermal output of the eclipse core. His only company was a lukewarm cup of coffee and a scrolling wall of green data. "Core temperature stable at 4,000 Kelvin, Noah dictated into his log. "Magnetic containment at 99%. Boring. Wonderfully, beautifully boring." He glanced at the secondary monitor, which showed a live feed of the gala. He scanned the crowd looking for a flash of dark hair and a hesitant smile. There she was. Sarah stood near the edge of the crowd close to a support pillar. She looked breathtaking in a gown of deep midnight blue that seemed to absorb the light around her. She was holding a glass of water, like a shield, her posture stiff. Captain Rhea Saul stood next to her, looking less like a chaperone and more like a loaded weapon in a dress uniform. "Smile, honey," Noah whispered to the screen. "It is almost over. Then we go home and order grease-laden noodles." On the screen, the lights in the dome began to dim. A hush fell over the crowd of 10,000. The artificial star, a burning sphere of fusion energy, began its slow transit behind the bulk of the station's shadow generators. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed over the station-wide speakers. "Witness the harmony of shadow and light." The eclipse began. The golden light of the star was slowly eaten away by a perfect circle of darkness. It was a marvel of engineering, a precise dance of physics designed to create a moment of total, beautiful twilight. But in the auxiliary control room, Noah heard the music change. The hum of the station, usually a steady major chord, suddenly dropped an octave. It didn't fade. It soured. It became a low, grinding vibration that rattled his coffee cup across the desk. "What is that?" Noah frowned. He turned to his main console. The green lines were turning orange. "Energy spike in the tertiary couplings," Noah said, his fingers flying across the keys. "That is not right. The eclipse is a passive shutter event. Why is the core drawing power?" He tapped the screen. "Computer, run a diagnostic on the containment field." Unable to comply, the computer's voice was distorted, slowed down, as if speaking underwater. System resources reallocated to Nightwave protocol. Nightwave, Noah froze. There is no Nightwave protocol. On the screen, the eclipse reached totality. The star vanished. But instead of the soft, ambient twilight that was promised, a heavy, suffocating darkness slammed into the station. It wasn't just an absence of light. It was a physical weight. On the live feed, the crowd in the dome gasped. Then the gasps turned to confusion. The beautiful bioluminescent decorations flickered and died. The emergency lights did not activate. And then, the screaming started. Sarah Knight felt it before she saw it. It hit her like a physical blow, a wave of cold, necrotic hunger that washed over the observation dome. It tasted of old dust and ancient malice. She dropped her glass. It shattered, but the sound was swallowed by the sudden, unnatural silence of the crowd. "Sarah," Captain Saul's voice was tight. "What is happening?" "Get down," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "Rhea, get them down." Above them, the darkness seemed to detach itself from the ceiling. Wisps of purple-black energy like smoke, made of oil, began to descend. It was a night wave, a weaponized field of entropy, that the Noxian Empire had used thousands of years ago to pacify rebellious colonies. It did not burn. It drained. It siphoned bioelectric energy from living things. A Solari diplomat standing near them suddenly clutched his chest. His golden scales turned a dull gray. He collapsed, his breathing shallow. "Medical," someone shouted. "He is having a seizure." Then another person fell, and another. "It is feeding," Sarah realized with horror. Mailer turned the Eclipse core into a siphon. The wave descended lower. It sought out the weakest first. 10 meters away, a Fenrathi family was huddled together. The Fenrathi were small, fragile avian humanoids. Their child, a girl no older than 6, looked up at the descending purple smoke. She didn't scream. She just looked tired. Her eyes rolled back in her head and she crumpled to the floor. "No," the mother screamed, shaking the child. "Wake up, someone help." The smoke swirled around the child, thickening, ready to consume the last spark of her life force. Sarah looked at Rhea. Rhea was shouting orders into her comms, but the signal was dead. Sarah looked at the exit. She could run. She could use her natural resistance to the dark energy to slip away. If she revealed herself now, here in front of the Galactic Council, her life was over. She would be hunted. Noah would be ruined. She looked at the child. The purple smoke was entering the girl's beak. Dark side out, she thought. You protect them from the glare. But sometimes, you have to be the monster to fight the dark. Sarah closed her eyes. She reached into the vault in her mind, the one she had guarded for 2 centuries. She found the iron doors that held back her true nature. She tore them off the hinges. "Get back!" Sarah screamed, her voice distorting into a harmonic roar that shattered the remaining glass flutes in the room. She leaped. To the onlookers, it was a blur. One moment the woman in the blue dress was standing by the pillar. The next she was airborne, landing in a crouch over the fallen Fenrathi child. Sarah looked up. Her skin had lost its pale human tone, shifting into the translucent, diamond-hard structure of a high-caste Noxian. Veins of glowing violet light pulsed beneath her dermis. Her mouth opened, revealing the full, terrifying array of needle teeth. And her eyes, no longer gray, no longer hiding, burned like twin red supernovas in the gloom. She raised her hand toward the descending smoke. She didn't push it away. She inhaled. She opened her mouth and pulled. The night wave, acting on the physics of a stronger vacuum, diverted. The purple smoke swirled away from the child and rushed into Sarah. It hit her like a lightning bolt. Pain, exquisite and terrible, arched through her back. This was raw, dirty energy filtered through a corrupt machine, but to her starving cells it was ambrosia. She drank it. She absorbed the entropy that was killing the crowd, turning her body into a living shield. The immediate area cleared. The Fenrathi child gasped color, returning to her feathers. Sarah stood up, trembling with the overdose of power. Violet lightning arced from her fingertips. She looked terrifying. She looked glorious. The crowd did not applaud. "Vampire!" a voice shrieked. "Noxian!" another yelled. "She is doing it! She is controlling the smoke!" The fear was instant and contagious. The people she had just saved scrambled backward, tripping over each other, to get away from the glowing, red-eyed demon in their midst. "Seize her!" a security officer yelled, raising his weapon. "Wait!" Captain Saul shouted, pushing through the crowd. "She saved the girl!" But no one was listening. The panic was absolute. Suddenly, the giant holographic screens that lined the dome flickered to life. The face of Mailer Draith appeared magnified to 50 meters tall. He looked concerned, paternal, and utterly fake. "Citizens of Hallowspire," Mailer's voice boomed, overriding the screams. "Do not panic. I am Mailer Draith, humble servant of the old ways. I warned you. I warned the council." His image pointed a giant finger down at Sarah, who stood isolated in a circle of fear. "The Star Eater is among you," Mailer declared. "She has hijacked your Eclipse core. She summons the Nightwave to feed. Look at her. Look at the monster hiding in your skin." Sarah looked up at the screen, panting. The energy inside her was boiling. She wanted to scream that he was lying, but her voice was a feral growl. "Give her to me," Mailer commanded smoothly. "Surrender the Noxian witch and I will use my knowledge to reverse her spell. I will save you." "Kill her!" Someone in the crowd threw a bottle. It smashed against Sarah's shoulder. She didn't flinch. She looked around. Hundreds of faces. Fear. Hatred. Disgust. She was the deadliest predator in the galaxy, and she had never felt so small. In the auxiliary control room, Noah stared at the screen. He had forgotten to breathe. He watched the woman he loved transform. He saw the red eyes. He saw the way she drank the darkness. For a moment, his brain simply rejected it. That is not Sarah. Sarah cries when she chops onions. Sarah wears fuzzy socks because her feet get cold. But then he saw the way she stood over the child. He saw the defensive posture, the way she curled her body to shield the small, alien girl from the smoke. He felt a spike of nausea. Betrayal. Yes. She had lied to him. Every day. Every supplement she took, every joke about vampires, every moment of their marriage had been built on a foundation of omission. "She is a Noxian," Noah whispered. "A real one." But then he looked at the data on his console. The energy readings from the dome didn't match Mailer's accusation. The Nightwave was originating from the core, not from Sarah. When Sarah had opened her mouth, the local energy levels had dropped. She wasn't generating the wave. She was acting as a heat sink. She was absorbing the radiation to keep it from frying the civilians. "She is not doing it," Noah said, his voice rising. "She is stopping it." He looked at Mailer's smug face on the screen. "You lying sack of dust." Noah grabbed his headset. "Captain Saul Rhea, can you hear me?" Static. "Damn it." Noah slammed his hand onto the console. "I need to stop the core. I need to cut the power." He typed in the emergency shutdown command. "Access denied. Biometric lock in place." "Override," Noah shouted. "Authorization Cade Alpha 1. User recognized steward," the computer replied. "However, the primary logic gate is held by an external will." "External will, Mailer." Noah closed his eyes. Typing wouldn't work. The code was compromised. He had to go deeper. He placed both hands flat on the haptic interface. He didn't look at the screen. He listened. The station's song was a cacophony. It sounded like a symphony orchestra being attacked by a chainsaw. The chainsaw was Mailer's code, a jagged, aggressive rhythm that was forcing the core to pump out entropy instead of gravity. But underneath the noise, Noah heard something else. A faint, weeping melody. The original operating system of Hallowspire. The Anchor Protocol. It was ancient. It felt human, but also not. It felt like a memory of Earth, mixed with the cold logic of the stars. "I hear you," Noah thought, projecting his mind into the machine. "Help me." The console sparked. A jolt of electricity ran up Noah's arms, making his teeth rattle. He didn't pull away. "Steward," the voice whispered in his head. "The flow is corrupted. The shadow seeks to consume the light." "Then we change the flow," Noah thought back furiously. "Give me the reins." "You are fragile," the system warned. "The current will burn you." "I don't care," Noah gritted his teeth. "Connect me." The world around him dissolved into lines of light. He wasn't in the room anymore. He was in the grid. He could feel the Eclipse core spinning in his chest. He could feel the night wave spreading through the ventilation shafts like poison in his veins. He found the source. Mailer was controlling the core remotely, but the connection was wireless. It had a physical receiving node. I can't shut it off, Noah realized, sweat pouring down his face in the real world. It has too much momentum. I have to divert it. I need a ground wire. The door to the control room hissed open. Noah snapped his eyes open, gasping for air. Rhea Saul stood there. She was supporting Sarah. Sarah looked terrible. Her dress was torn. Her skin was gray. White and black veins were spiderwebbing from her neck to her jaw. Her eyes were squeezed shut, leaking dark fluid. Her hands were bound with energy cuffs. Noah, Rhea panted, dragging Sarah into the room. The mob was going to tear her apart. I told them I was taking her to the brig. I brought her here. Noah scrambled out of his chair. He looked at his wife, the monster, the savior. Sarah, he breathed. Sarah opened her eyes. They were a dull, muddy red. She flinched away from him. Don't, she rasped. Her voice was cracked. Don't come close, I can't. I am full. I will hurt you. She absorbed too much of the wave, Rhea said, checking the door controls. She is a walking bomb, Noah. If she lets go, she takes out the sector. If she keeps holding it, she dies. Mailer is ramping up the power, Noah said, pointing to the screen. He is preparing a second pulse, a fatal one. He is going to wipe the station and blame it on her explosion. We have to eject the core, Rhea said. We can't, Noah shook his head. The magnetic locks are fused. There is only one way. He looked at Sarah. The anchor and the star. Sarah looked at him, confusion clouding her pain. What? The system told me, Noah said, stepping closer to her, despite her warning hiss. The anchor directs the flow. The star consumes it. That is how the station was built. It is a partnership. Noah, no, Sarah pleaded, backing against the wall. I am a killer. Look at me, I am the Scarlet Star. I slaughtered thousands. You can't connect with me. The darkness in my mind, it will drive you insane. It will roast your brain. And if we don't, Noah asked. Mailer kills everyone, including us. I am not afraid to die, Sarah wept. I am afraid of killing you. Noah stopped. He stood 2 feet away from her. The woman who could tear through steel like wet paper was trembling because she was terrified of scratching him. You lied to me, Noah said softly. Sarah flinched, as if he had hit her. I know, I am sorry, I am so sorry. You let me watch bad vampire movies and didn't tell me you were the source material. Sarah blinked, a hysterical sob escaping her throat. That is what you are mad about. I am mad about a lot of things, Noah said, his voice shaking. But right now I am mostly mad that you think I am weak. He reached out. He didn't grab her arm. He grabbed the energy cuffs binding her wrists. Noah, stop, Rhea warned. Unlock her, Noah commanded Rhea. She might eat you, Rhea said bluntly. She won't. Noah looked straight into Sarah's red eyes. Because if she does, she will have to explain to my mother why she ruined the wedding photos. Sarah stared at him. The hunger was screaming in her head, a deafening roar, demanding she feast on the warm beating heart in front of her. But looking at Noah, his messy hair, his stubborn chin, his absolute idiot courage, the roar quieted just a fraction. I am a monster, Noah, she whispered. What am I to you? You are the woman who puts hot sauce on popcorn, Noah said. You are my wife. And right now, you are the only thing standing between this station and death. He looked at Rhea. Do it. Rhea deactivated the cuffs. Sarah's hands fell free. She didn't attack. She stood there vibrating with contained energy. Take my hand, Noah said, holding his hand out. I will connect to the core. I will filter the command signal. I will force the night wave to flow through me into you. You just have to drink it all. Drain the station dry. It will hurt, Sarah warned. It will feel like being torn apart. I have had your cooking, Noah gave a shaky smile. I can handle heartburn. Sarah let out a broken laugh. She reached out. Her hand was cold, her nails sharp enough to slice bone. She interlaced her fingers with his. "If you are the darkness," Noah whispered, stepping back to the console and dragging her with him. "Then I am the handrail. Hold on." Noah slammed his free hand onto the interface. Sarah placed her free hand on the exposed power coupling of the core housing. Contact. The world vanished. There was no room, no station, no galaxy. There was only fire and ice. Noah screamed. It felt like someone had hooked his nervous system up to a starship engine. The night wave surged into him, a torrent of black sludge, screaming with Mailer's malice. It wanted to rot him. It wanted to stop his heart. No, Noah's mind roared. "I am the anchor. You go where I say you go." He visualized the flow. He took the black sludge and forced it through a filter. He stripped away the command code, the hatred, the intent to kill. He turned it into raw, neutral power. And he pushed it into Sarah. Sarah arched her back, a silent scream, tearing from her throat. It was too much. It was an ocean being poured into a cup. Her history flashed before her eyes, every life she had taken, every star she had extinguished. The guilt threatened to shatter her mind. The darkness wanted to take over, to turn her into the mindless beast Mailer wanted. "I can't hold it," she thought. "I am slipping." Then she felt it, a thread of gold in the black ocean. It wasn't power. It was a memory. The smell of burnt coffee on a Tuesday morning. The sound of rain against the hull. Noah singing badly in the shower. The warmth of his back against hers in bed. Noah was feeding her his memories. He was using the connection to anchor her humanity. He wasn't just giving her energy. He was reminding her who she was. "Stay with me, Sarah," Noah's voice echoed in the psychic storm. "Don't you dare let go." Sarah clamped her jaws shut. She dug her claws into the metal floor. She felt the love he had for her, not despite the monster, but including it. He saw the beast and he held its hand. She roared. It was a sound of defiance. She pulled. She pulled the night wave out of the ventilation shafts, out of the observation dome, out of the corridors. She sucked the darkness out of the very air of Hallowspire. In the observation dome, the purple smoke vanished. The Fenrothi child woke up. The lights flickered from black to normal white. In the core room, the console exploded in a shower of sparks. The connection broke. Noah was thrown backward, hitting the wall hard. He slid to the floor, unconscious, smoke rising from his uniform. Sarah collapsed where she stood. The red faded from her eyes, leaving them a dull, exhausted gray. She curled into a ball, shivering violently. The station was silent. The hum was back to a steady major chord. "Status!" Rhea Saul yelled, checking her datapad. "Report. Nightwave neutralized." The computer chirped, sounding cheerful again. "Core stability at 50%. Atmospheric scrubbers are active." Rhea looked at the two figures on the floor. "They did it," she whispered. She ran to Noah. He had a pulse. It was weak and his hand was badly burned, but he was alive. She checked Sarah. The Noxian was catatonic, her body temperature dropping rapidly as it processed the massive influx of energy. The door to the control room opened again. This time it wasn't enemies. It was a medical team. But behind them, standing in the corridor, were others. Council members. Journalists with hovering cameras. Security troopers. They stared at Sarah. They didn't see a hero. They saw the monster from the screens. They saw the woman who had just admitted to being the Scarlet Star. "Arrest her," a council member ordered, his voice shaking. "Arrest the vampire, and arrest the engineer who helped her." Rhea stood up, placing herself between her friends and the door. Her hand rested on her holster. "They saved us," Rhea said. "They nearly killed us," the council member retorted. "Look at the logs. She drained the power. She is a weapon." Noah groaned, shifting on the floor. Sarah didn't move. The battle for the station was over. The battle for their lives had just begun. The headache was the first thing Noah Cade registered. It was not a normal headache. It felt as though someone had taken a tuning fork, struck it against a starship hull, and then embedded it directly into his frontal lobe. It was a rhythmic thrumming pain that synced perfectly with the pulse of the medical monitors beeping beside his bed. "Heart rate stabilizing," a synthetic voice announced. "Synaptic pathways showing signs of significant stress." Noah peeled his eyes open. The light in the medical bay was offensively bright. He tried to sit up, but his body felt heavy, like it was made of lead. "Easy, Mr. Cade," a nurse said, gently pushing him back down. "You have been unconscious for 30 hours. Your neural network took a massive surge. It is a miracle your brain did not liquidate." "Sarah," Noah croaked. His throat felt like sandpaper. "Where is Sarah?" The nurse hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the two armed guards standing outside the glass door of his room. "The subject is being held in Sector 0. Secure containment." "She is not a subject," Noah snapped, the anger giving him a sudden burst of energy. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. "She is my wife." "She is a Class 5 biological threat." A new voice entered the room. Noah looked up to see Captain Rhea Sol standing in the doorway. She looked exhausted. Her pristine uniform was rumpled, and the gold plating of her cybernetic jaw looked dull. She waved the guards away and stepped inside the door, sliding shut with a heavy hiss. "You look terrible, Noah," she said, pulling up a chair. "You should see the other guy," Noah muttered, rubbing his temples. "How is she? Tell me the truth, Rhea." "She is alive," Rhea said, her voice tight. "But Hallowspire is tearing itself apart over her. Half the council wants to give her a medal for sucking the Nightwave out of the dome. The other half wants to eject her out of an airlock before she gets hungry again." "She saved them," Noah said, his voice rising. "We stopped the core." "I know," Rhea sighed. "But fear has a short memory. Mailer escaped. His signal is gone. But he left a parting gift, a broadcast suggesting that the Nightwave wasn't a malfunction, but a summoning ritual. He claims Sarah called it, and you helped her." Noah laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "So I am the accomplice to the Vampire Queen now." "You are the anchor engineer who compromised station security," Rhea corrected. "You are under investigation. I pulled every favor I had just to keep you out of a cell. But Sarah, I couldn't stop them. She is in the high-energy brigade. They put a suppression collar on her." Noah's blood ran cold. He knew what those collars did. They didn't just dampen abilities. They sent continuous low-voltage shocks to the nervous system to disrupt focus. It was torture disguised as safety. "I need to see her," Noah said, standing up. His knees buckled, but he grabbed the IV stand for support. "Noah, you can barely stand." "I don't care," Noah said, staring at her. "Take me to her, or I will walk out of here and hack the door myself." Rhea looked at him for a long moment. She saw the stubborn set of his jaw, the same look he had when he insisted on fixing a toaster that should have been scrapped. "Fine," she said. "But you only get 10 minutes. And if anyone asks, you are there to assist in her interrogation." Sector 0 was the deepest part of the security complex, a place where the air was cold and smelled of ozone and despair. There were no windows here, only thick walls of blast-proof Durasteel. Noah walked down the corridor, his hospital gown replaced by a spare gray jumpsuit Rhea had found him. He clutched a small paper bag in his hand. "Cell 4, the guard at the desk grunted, not looking up. Noah approached the cell. It wasn't a room with bars. It was a containment field, a wall of shimmering translucent energy that hummed with lethal voltage. Inside, Sarah sat on a metal bench bolted to the floor. She looked small. That was Noah's first thought. The terrifying creature who had faced down an army was gone. She was wearing a beige prisoner's uniform that washed out her pale skin. Her dark hair hung limp around her face. Around her neck was a thick black metal collar with a blinking red light. She was staring at the floor, her hands clasped tightly in her lap to stop them from shaking. "Sarah," Noah whispered. Her head snapped up. Her eyes were gray but dull, rimmed with dark circles. When she saw him, a mixture of relief and horror crossed her face. She scrambled off the bench and backed away, pressing herself against the far wall. "Don't," she rasped. Her voice was weak. "Noah, don't come near the glass. The field it interacts with your bioelectricity." "I am fine," Noah said, stepping right up to the barrier. He could feel the static charge raising the hair on his arms. "Are you okay? Does that thing hurt?" He pointed to the collar. Sarah reached up, touching the cold metal. "It keeps the hunger down. It scrambles the signals. It is manageable." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face for fear, for disgust. "Why are you here? You should be distancing yourself. Tell them I mind-controlled you. Tell them you didn't know." "I didn't know," Noah said. "About the vampire part. But I knew who you were. The mind control excuse wouldn't work. I am too stubborn to be hypnotized." He held up the paper bag. "I brought you something." Sarah frowned, confused. "Noah, this is a maximum security prison. You can't pass items." "It is not for you to have," Noah said. "It is for me to show you." He opened the bag and pulled out a tea bag, Earl Grey. "I was going to make you tea," Noah said, his voice trembling slightly. "But then, I remembered the guards took your kettle. So I just brought the bag. It is the thought that counts, right?" Sarah stared at the tea bag. It was such a mundane, stupid, wonderful object. A 2-credit bag of dried leaves in the middle of a nightmare. A laugh bubbled up in her throat, choking her. "You are an idiot, Noah Cade." "I have been told," Noah smiled, though his eyes were wet. "Also, I brought this." He pulled out a small plush toy. It was a bat. A cartoonishly cute bat with big eyes and goofy fangs. "Found it in the gift shop upstairs," Noah said. "Thought the resemblance was striking." Sarah slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. She put her head in her hands and began to cry. Not the silent, stoic weeping of the night before, but messy, human sobs. "I am so sorry," she wept. "I ruined everything. Your life, your job. They are going to cast you out because of me." Noah sat down on the floor on his side of the glass. He mirrored her position. "Sarah, look at me." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "You saved the station," Noah said firmly. "I felt it, when we were connected. I felt what you did. You didn't just eat the energy. You took the pain. You took the fear of 10,000 people and you swallowed it, so they wouldn't have to." "I am a monster," she whispered. "I am the Scarlet Star. You saw the history logs. You know what I did 200 years ago." "I know what you did yesterday," Noah countered. "I don't care about 200 years ago. I care about the woman who puts extra blankets on me when I fall asleep on the couch. I care about the woman who saved a little girl while everyone else was running away." He pressed his hand against the energy field. It sparked, stinging his palm, but he didn't pull back. "We are going to fix this," Noah promised. "Mailer is still out there. He is the one who did this. And we are going to stop him." Sarah looked at his hand against the glass. She slowly raised her own hand, pressing it against the barrier from the inside, lining her fingers up with his. The energy field hummed between them, a dangerous, invisible wall. But for a moment, they were touching. "You should leave me," Sarah said softly. "It would be safer." "I already told you," Noah said, his voice thick with emotion. "Dark side out. You protect me from the dark. I keep you in the light. We are a set, Sarah. No refunds." The door to the corridor opened. "Time is up, Cade," the guard barked. Noah stood up. He looked at Sarah one last time. "I will be back tomorrow. With hot water, I promise." Sarah watched him go. When the door closed, she touched the tea bag in her mind, imagining the scent of bergamot, and, for the first time in hours, the hunger in her gut felt a little less consuming. While Noah played the role of the devoted husband, Mailer Draith was playing a different game. Hidden in a derelict service sublevel of the station, Mailer stood before a bank of repurposed monitors. He was weak. The feedback from the nightwave reversal had damaged his physical form. His skin was flaking like ash, and his left arm was entirely skeletal. The flesh burned away. But his mind was sharp. "The seeds are sown," he rasped to the shadows. On the screens, the news feeds of Hallowspire were playing. Protests erupt in the agricultural ring. Citizens demand the execution of the Noxian witch. Reports of sickness in the lower decks. People are claiming phantom drains on their energy. Is the vampire still feeding from her cell? It was a lie, of course. The sickness was a simple flu virus Mailer had released into the air recyclers, mild but terrifying in the current climate. "Fear," Mailer whispered. "It is more potent than any weapon. It makes them blind." He tapped a command into his console. "Activate the sleepers," he ordered. Throughout the station, deep within the coding of maintenance droids, sanitation bots, and even some low-level security AIs, a dormant line of code woke up. It was a virus Mailer had planted months ago. Protocol Discord. In the main concourse, a cleaning drone suddenly stopped scrubbing the floor. Its optical sensors turned red. It rammed itself into a shop window, shattering the glass. In the transit hub, the ticket kiosks began displaying anti-alien propaganda. And in the mercenary barracks of the lower city, 36 individuals received a deposit of credits and a single image, Noah Cade's face. "Bring me the anchor," Mailer commanded, "and kill the rest." Captain Rhea Saul was not sleeping. She sat in her office surrounded by holographic displays of the station's security grid. Something was wrong. She had reviewed the logs of the Nightwave incident 100 times. The official council report stated that Sarah Knight had initiated an unauthorized energy transfer. It implied malice. But Rhea had been there. She had seen the way Sarah moved. She had seen Noah's face. "Computer," Rhea said, rubbing her cybernetic eye. "Trace the command signal that locked the core prior to the event." "Signal origin masked," the computer replied, routing through multiple proxy nodes. "Unmask it," Rhea growled. "I have level alpha clearance." "Clearance insufficient. Signal is encrypted with pre-coalition ciphers." Rhea slammed her fist on the desk. "Mailer." She stood up and paced. She had handed Sarah over. She had done her duty. But her gut, the organic part of it, was twisting with guilt. She remembered the way Sarah had looked at Noah in the core room. That wasn't the look of a monster. That was the look of someone who had found their home and was terrified of burning it down. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," Rhea said, her hand drifting to her sidearm. The door slid open. It wasn't a trooper. It was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 12. He wore a tech runner's vest that was 3 sizes too big, covered in grease stains and patches. He was holding a small, hovering drone that looked like it had been built from spare toaster parts. "Who are you?" Rhea asked, surprised. "How did you get into the security sector?" "The ventilation shaft in the bathroom is loose," the boy said with a shrug. "You really should fix that." He stepped into the room looking nervous, but determined. "I am Jax. Noah fixed my drone last week. He didn't charge me." "Okay, Jax," Rhea said slowly. "Why are you in my office?" "Because the news is lying," Jax said. He set his drone down on her desk. "My drone, I call him Sparky. He was recording during the gala. He was hovering near the ceiling of the dome, trying to get footage of the celebrities to sell." He tapped the drone. A holographic projection sprang up. It was shaky, high-angle footage of the observation dome. It showed the purple smoke descending. It showed the people falling. And it showed Sarah. But from this angle, you could see something else. You could see the smoke recoiling from her before she even touched it. You could see the way she pulled it into herself, her body arching in pain, not pleasure. And you could hear the audio. "Get back, Rhea, get them down." It was a scream of protection, not attack. "She saved them," Jack said, pointing at the hologram. "She looked like a monster, yeah. But she saved that kid. I thought she was cool." Rhea watched the footage. Tears pricked her eyes. This was the proof. It wouldn't convince the xenophobes, but it convinced her. "You are a brave kid, Jax," Rhea said softly. "Also," Jax added, digging into his pocket, "I found this in the subcode of the newsfeed. I was trying to hack the paywall for free comics." He handed her a data chip. Rhea slotted it into her console. It was a trace log. "The sickness reports the fear-mongering articles. They were all being uploaded from a single bouncing IP address, located in the derelict Sector 4. "He is still here," Rhea whispered. "Mailer is still at the station." She grabbed her helmet. "Jax, can you fly that drone through a security laser grid without tripping it?" Jax grinned. "I can fly Sparky through the eye of a needle in a hurricane." "Good," Rhea said. "You are drafted. Pack your gear. We are going to jail." The situation in Hallowspire deteriorated rapidly over the next 24 hours. By the time Noah returned to the medical bay to rest, which mostly involved pacing and staring at the wall, the station was on the brink of a riot. A mob had gathered outside the security sector. They held signs that read, "Purge the darkness," and "No more vampires." Someone threw a Molotov cocktail at the gate. Noah watched it on the monitor. He felt helpless. Suddenly the door to his room hissed open. But it wasn't a nurse. It was an old man. He was tall, thin, and had skin the color of polished obsidian, similar to Rhea's, but with a texture like weathered stone. He wore simple robes. "Noah Cade," the man said. His voice was like dry leaves rustling. Noah stood up. "Who are you?" "I am Eldrin," the man said. He bowed slightly. "I am a cousin of your wife. Distant, of course." Noah realized with a start that the man was Noxian. He didn't have the red eyes. They were a soft amber, but the energy around him felt the same. Ancient, heavy. "How did you get in here?" Noah asked. "I walked," Eldrin smiled. "People do not look at old men. They look at monsters and heroes. I am neither." He stepped closer. "I am here because the captain sent me. She is diverting the guards." "Rhea." "She has found the truth," Eldrin said. "She knows Mailer is planning to detonate the Eclipse core. He wants to create a permanent nightwave, one that will consume the entire Jovara system." Noah's eyes widened. "He wants to blow up the station." "He wants to create a singularity of darkness," Eldrin corrected. "A beacon to call the rest of the Noxian armada from the void. Hallowspire is the fuel." The door opened again. Rhea Saul walked in, wearing civilian clothes and carrying a heavy duffel bag. Jax was behind her, looking wide-eyed at Noah. "We have to go," Rhea said. "Now. The mob is breaching the outer perimeter. The council has ordered Sarah's transfer to a secure military vessel. If they take her off the station, we lose her. And Mailer wins." "What is the plan?" Noah asked, grabbing the clothes Rhea tossed him. "We break her out," Rhea said grimly. "And then we go to the core. We finish what you started." "A jailbreak," Noah zipped up the jacket. "I always wanted to be a criminal." The breakout was not like in the movies. It was messy, loud, and terrifying. Rhea led them through the service tunnels, bypassing the main corridors, where the mob was clashing with security forces. Jax flew his drone ahead, scouting for automated defenses. Eldrin moved with a surprising speed for his age, his robes fluttering silently. They reached Sector 0. The guards were distracted by the riot upstairs, but 2 remained at the main blast door. "Leave this to me," Eldrin said. He stepped out of the shadows. He didn't attack. He simply raised a hand and whispered a word in the old tongue. The guards' eyes rolled back in their heads. They slumped to the floor asleep. "Sleep suggestion," Eldrin explained to a stunned Noah. "Very useful for fussy infants and bored sentries." They rushed inside. Sarah was standing in her cell. She had heard the alarms. When she saw Noah, her eyes widened. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "You are going to get killed." "We are getting you out," Noah said, running to the console. "Rhea, the codes." Rhea plugged a decoder into the panel. "I am locked out. They changed the encryption this morning. It is a council-level seal." "Step aside," Noah said. He placed his hands on the panel. He didn't try to hack it. He closed his eyes and reached for the music. The station was screaming now. The riot, the fear, the virus, and the droids, it was a cacophony of dissonance. But underneath it all, the anchor protocol was still humming, waiting for him. "Steward," the voice greeted him. "Open the door," Noah commanded. "Authorization absolute. Warning. Override of council seal constitutes treason. I am the anchor." Noah thought, projecting an image of the lantern light and dark together. "I am the law of this station. Open it." The panel sparked. The red light turned green. The energy field flickered and died. Sarah stood there free. She looked at Noah, then at the others. "You are all insane," she said, but she stepped out of the cell. "We are family," Jax piped up from behind Rhea. "Dysfunctional, maybe, but family." Sarah looked at the boy, then at Rhea, then Eldrin. Finally, her eyes landed on Noah. "I need blood," she said bluntly. "If we are going to fight Mailer, I can't be weak. The collar starved me." Noah didn't hesitate. He rolled up his sleeve. "Noah, no," Sarah recoiled. "I meant a blood pack, from the medical bay." "We don't have time," Noah said. He held his arm out. "Take it. Just don't drain me dry. I need to drive." Sarah stared at his arm. The vein was pulsing. The scent was intoxicating. Her eyes flashed red, the hunger roaring to life. "I will hurt you," she whispered. "Trust me," Noah said. Sarah took a breath. She stepped forward. She took his arm gently, her touch cool. She looked into his eyes, asking for permission one last time. Noah nodded. She lowered her head. Her fangs extended sharp and gleaming. She bit down. Noah hissed in pain, gripping Rhea's shoulder for support. It felt like ice and fire entering his bloodstream. He felt his energy being siphoned away, a dizzying rush of vertigo. But he didn't pull away. He stroked Sarah's hair. "It is okay. I am here." Sarah drank. Not greedily, but with a desperate, reverent need. She took just enough to stabilize her core, to ignite the violet fire in her veins. She pulled back. Her mouth was stained crimson. She licked the wound on his arm, and the bleeding stopped instantly, the skin knitting together. She looked up. Her eyes were bright, powerful, and clear. The gray was gone, replaced by a swirling storm of starlight. "Thank you," she whispered. "You are welcome," Noah said, swaying slightly. "Now let's go save the galaxy. Again." They moved toward the central lift. The plan was to descend to the Eclipse core, bypass Mailer's sleeper droids, and manually purge the system before he could detonate it. But Mailer was watching. As they entered the main transit hub, the lights died. "Ambush!" Rhea shouted, shoving Jax behind a pillar. From the shadows, red optical sensors flared to life. Dozens of service droids retrofitted with industrial lasers marched out. And behind them, a squad of mercenaries in heavy armor. "The Anchor and the Star," a synthesized voice boomed from the speakers. "So kind of you to join the party." Mailer's face appeared on the transit screens. He looked worse than before. His skin was falling off in chunks, but his smile was triumphant. "The council is busy quelling the riots I started," Mailer sneered. "No one is coming to help you. Surrender the Anchor and I will make your deaths quick." Sarah stepped forward. She wiped the remaining blood from her lip. She wasn't wearing armor. She was wearing a prison jumpsuit and a pair of stolen boots. But she looked like a queen. "Mailer," Sarah called out, her voice echoing through the massive hall. "You always talk too much. That is why I never liked you." "Kill them," Mailer ordered. The droids opened fire. "Noah, get to the lift!" Sarah screamed. She didn't run for cover. She ran at the droids. She moved like smoke. A laser bolt passed through where her head had been a microsecond before. She grabbed a heavy sanitation bot and threw it into a group of mercenaries. Rhea opened fire with her plasma rifle, covering Jax and Eldrin. "Go!" Rhea shouted at Noah. "We will hold them off." "I am not leaving you," Noah yelled, ducking as sparks showered over him. "You have to," Eldrin said, grabbing Noah's arm with surprising strength. "You are the only one who can talk to the core. If Mailer finishes the sequence, this fight means nothing." Noah looked at Sarah. She was a whirlwind of violence in the center of the room, tearing the arm off a droid and using it as a club. She caught his eye. "Go," she mouthed. "I will follow." Noah gritted his teeth. "Come on." He grabbed Jax, who was hacking the lift controls. "Get it open, kid." "I am trying," Jax typed furiously on his wristpad. "The firewall is nasty." The lift doors hissed open. Noah and Jax dived inside. Eldrin pushed them back. "I stay," the old Noxian said calmly. "The captain and the queen need support." "Eldrin, no," Noah shouted. "Go anchor," Eldrin smiled. "The story needs an ending." He hit the override button. The doors slammed shut. As the lift began to descend into the bowels of the station, Noah pressed his forehead against the metal door. He could hear the sounds of battle fading above him. He looked at Jax. The kid was terrified, clutching his drone. "Are we going to die?" Jax asked in a small voice. Noah looked at his healed arm, where Sarah's bite mark was a faint, silver scar. He felt the phantom pain of the connection, the music of the station crying out in agony. "No," Noah said, his voice hard. "We are going to go down there. We are going to find Mailer, and I am going to introduce him to the angry end of a wrench." The lift plummeted into the dark, carrying them toward the heart of the star. Back in the transit hub, the battle raged. Sarah was tiring. The blood Noah had given her was strong, but there were too many enemies. A plasma bolt grazed her ribcage, burning flesh. She fell back, breathing hard. Rhea was beside her, firing controlled bursts. "We can't hold this forever," Rhea grunted. "We don't have to," Sarah said, her eyes glowing. "We just have to buy him time." She looked at the screen where Mailer's face was still gloating. "You want a monster, Mailer," she whispered. "I will show you a monster." She reached deep into herself, past the hunger, past the fear. She found the place where Noah's memory lived, the taste of cheap tea, the sound of his laugh. She didn't use it to hold back the darkness. She used it to focus it. She let out a scream that wasn't a sound but a psychic shockwave. The mercenaries clutched their heads, dropping their weapons. The droids stuttered. "Eldrin," Sarah said, her voice commanding. "Cover me. I am going to clear the path." The old Noxian nodded, his amber eyes shining. Serenite. The Scarlet Star smiled. It was a terrifying, beautiful smile. "Let's dance." She launched herself back into the fray, a blur of shadow and blood, fighting not for an empire, but for a husband who waited in the dark. The service elevator groaned as it descended past the known limits of Hallowspire Station. The digital floor indicator had given up 10 minutes ago, flashing a simple, ominous red dash. Inside the cage, the air grew heavy and stale, smelling of recycled oxygen that had not been scrubbed in centuries. Noah Cade leaned against the vibrating metal wall, his hand still throbbing where Sarah had bitten him. Beside him, Jax was hugging his knees, his eyes wide and fixed on the darkness rushing past the grate. "We are deep," Jax whispered, his voice trembling. "Like crushed by pressure, deep. The schematics say there is nothing down here but structural struts." "The schematics are wrong," Noah said, his voice sounding hollow in the small space. "The music is loudest here. It is not just a hum anymore. It is a choir." With a final, bone-jarring shudder, the lift stopped. The doors did not hiss open. They ground apart with a screech of rusted gears. Noah stepped out, raising a flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, revealing a corridor that looked nothing like the gleaming, sterile hallways of the upper decks. The walls here were not made of standard durasteel alloy. They were crafted from a dark, obsidian-like stone, etched with veins of silver circuitry that pulsed with a faint, dying light. "Whoa!" Jax breathed, stepping out behind him. "This architecture. This is pre-coalition. This is ancient." "It is a tomb," a voice echoed from the shadows behind them. Noah spun around, raising the heavy wrench he had grabbed from the lift's emergency kit. From the darkness of a parallel maintenance tunnel, 3 figures emerged. Sarah, looking battered but regal in her torn jumpsuit. Captain Rhea Saul, limping slightly. And Eldrin, whose robes were singed, but whose expression remained serene. Sarah, Noah, lowered the wrench, relief washing over him. "How did you—" "Gravity shoot," Rhea grunted, holstering her plasma pistol. "Not a comfortable ride, but faster than the lift. We cleared the transit hub. Mailer's forces are regrouping, but he is coming. We don't have much time." Sarah did not speak. She walked past Noah, her eyes fixed on the massive circular door at the end of the corridor. The silver circuitry on the walls seemed to reach toward her, the light brightening as she passed. "This is it," Sarah whispered. "The foundation." They approached the door. It was 3 stories tall, covered in a relief carving that made Noah stop in his tracks. The carving depicted a star, a jagged violet sphere being held in the palm of a hand. But the hand wasn't crushing it. It was cradling it, and surrounding the hand were vines of energy connecting the star to a small, fragile figure standing below. "That symbol," Jax said, zooming in with his drone's camera. "That is the seal of the First Covenant. I thought that was just a myth. A bedtime story about how the first humans met the aliens." "It is no myth," Eldrin said softly. He walked to the door and placed his hand on a specific glyph. "It is a history book. Open for the blood remembers." The door did not slide. It dissolved. The matter simply rearranged itself, folding away into the walls, to reveal a vast, cavernous chamber beyond. They stepped inside. It was a data temple. Rows upon rows of crystalline servers stretched up into the darkness, humming with the memories of 1,000 years. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and hovering above it was a sphere of pure liquid light, the original command node of the station. But Noah wasn't looking at the light. He was looking at the mural on the far wall. It was a fresco preserved perfectly in the vacuum-sealed room. It showed a woman with eyes like burning blood, standing amidst a field of dead stars. She looked terrifying, a goddess of destruction. But in the next panel, she was kneeling, offering her wrists to a human man who was binding them with chains of light. Noah looked at the painting. Then he turned to look at his wife. The resemblance was not just striking. It was exact. "Eldrin," Noah said, his voice shaking. "What is this?" Eldrin sighed, the sound echoing like wind in a canyon. "You know the legend of the Scarlet Star, Noah, the Noxian queen who ate a star to end the 1,000-year war." "Everyone knows it," Noah said. "She was a monster, a destroyer. She wiped out the Cygnus system." "She ended a genocide," Eldrin corrected gently. "The Cygnus warlords were going to burn the galaxy. She absorbed their sun to strip them of their power. It was an act of salvation, not malice. But the intake of energy, it broke her. It made her the deadliest being in existence. She became a weapon that could not be deactivated." Eldrin pointed a long gray finger at Sarah. "She is not a descendant of the Scarlet Star, Noah. She is the Scarlet Star." The silence in the room was absolute. Even Jax stopped typing on his datapad. Noah stared at Sarah, his wife, the woman who argued with him about laundry, the woman who liked her toast burnt because she said it added texture. "Sarah," Noah asked. It was a plea. "Tell me he is lying." Sarah did not look at him. She was staring at her hands. "My name was Saris Nightfall. I was the High Queen of the Noxian Dominion. I am 2,409 years old." She looked up, and her eyes were swimming with tears. "I didn't eat the star because I was hungry, Noah. I ate it because they were going to kill everyone I loved. And then, I couldn't stop. The hunger never left. I became the thing I fought. Noah took a step back. You have been alive for 2,000 years. I ran, Sarah whispered. I abdicated. I fled to the fringes of the galaxy. I slept in cryostasis for centuries at a time, waking only to feed on dying nebulas. I was trying to die, but I couldn't. And then you came here, Noah said, to Hallowspire. I felt a signal, Sarah admitted. Her voice was steady, now resigned. A resonance, the frequency of an anchor. It is rare, 1 in a trillion. It is the only thing in the universe that can ground a Noxian of my power level. The only thing that can filter hunger. She took a deep breath. I came here looking for you, Noah. Noah felt like he had been punched in the gut. You looked for me. I tracked your biosignature, Sarah said. I orchestrated our meeting at the Transit Cafe. I spilled my coffee on you on purpose. I needed to be close to you. I needed to see if your genetic code was compatible with the Anchor Protocol. So it was a setup, Noah said, his voice cold. The marriage, the romance. It was just calibration. You needed a human battery. Yes, Sarah said. At first. At first, Noah laughed a bitter, sharp sound. And when did it change, Your Majesty, between the second and third date? Or did you wait until the honeymoon to decide I was a useful pet? Noah, stop, Rhea warned, stepping forward. No, Noah shouted, the echo ringing through the temple. She lied to me. My entire life with her is a fabrication. I am just a tool to keep the monster on a leash. That is not true, Sarah screamed back, the tears finally falling. Yes, it was a plan. I was tired of being alone. I was tired of being hungry. I wanted peace. But then you made me laugh. You bandaged my finger when I cut it, even though I heal instantly. You sang to me when I had nightmares about the war. She walked toward him, ignoring the flinch he gave. I stayed because I loved you, you idiot, she cried. I could have taken your energy and left a year ago. I stayed because for the first time in 2 millenniums, I didn't want to be the Scarlet Star. I just wanted to be Sarah Cade. Noah stared at her. He saw the pain in her face. It was raw and messy and painfully human. Before he could answer, a low hum filled the room. The sphere of light above the pedestal pulsed. Steward of the First Covenant detected a voice boomed, not from speakers, but from the walls themselves. Welcome home, designation Cade. A hologram materialized in the center of the room. It showed a man. He wore a primitive flight suit from Earth's early expansion era. He had messy hair and a stubborn jaw. He looked exactly like Noah. And standing next to him in the recording was a woman with flowing dark hair and red eyes. Sarah. This is Captain Elias Cade, the AI announced, architect of Hallowspire, and his bondmate Saris Nightfall, the First Covenant. Noah watched the recording. He saw his ancestor Elias laughing at something Saris said. He saw Elias reach out and touch her face, not with fear, but with reverence. History Log 4022, the AI narrated. The Covenant was established to save the Noxian refugees. The human anchors provided the moral framework and biological filter. The Noxian stars provided the raw power to fuel the station. It was a symbiosis, a marriage of logic and power. You are not just a random mutation, Noah, Eldrin said softly. You are the direct descendant of Elias. You carry the genetic key. Sarah didn't just find an anchor. She found the only anchor. Noah looked at the hologram of his great-great-great-grandfather. He looked at the way Elias held Saris's hand. It wasn't an accident, Noah whispered. But it wasn't just a calculation either. He looked at Sarah. She was hugging herself, looking small and terrified of his judgment. You knew, Noah said to her. You knew who I was. I suspected, Sarah said. I didn't know for sure until today, until you connect to the core. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to love me, Sarah sobbed. Not the history, not the duty, just me. The ground shook violently. Dust rained down from the high ceiling. Touching family reunion, a voice sneered from the entrance. Mailer Draith stood there. He was no longer trying to look human. His disguise had fully degraded. He was a towering figure of charred flesh and exposed bone surrounded by a swirling aura of black energy. Behind him stood a dozen heavy combat droids and his elite mercenary guard. The Scarlet Star and the Heir of Cade, Mailer rasped, stepping into the sanctuary. Fate really does have a sense of humor. Mailer, Sarah wiped her face, her expression hardening instantly. Get out of my house. Your house, Mailer laughed. You abandoned this house, Saris? You left us to rot while you played house with your food. He raised a hand. The droids raised their weapons. But I am generous, Mailer said. I will give you a choice. Hand over the anchor. Let me consume his lineage and take control of the station. I will let you live. You can go back to sleep in the dark. And if I refuse, Sarah asked, her eyes beginning to glow. Then I will enact the second wave, Mailer said. I will reverse the polarity of the station's gravity. Hallowspire will collapse into the gas giant, and I will feed on the death of 5 million souls to ascend to godhood. He snapped his fingers. The sphere of light above the pedestal turned a sickly, bruised purple. Mailer had tapped into the temple system remotely. He was bypassing the manual controls. He is activating the collapse, Jax shouted, looking at his datapad. Gravity well is destabilizing. We have 3 minutes before the station implodes. Noah, Rhea shouted, firing her pistol at the advancing droids. Get to the pedestal. You have to lock him out. Noah didn't move. He was staring at Mailer. Then he looked at Sarah. He wants to eat at the station, Noah said. He is hungry. He is a void, Sarah said, violet lightning arcing off her skin. He can't be filled. Everything can be filled, Noah said. A strange calm settled over him. You just need the right spoon, he turned to Sarah. Do you trust me? With my life, Sarah said without hesitation. Good. Because this is going to hurt. Noah ran toward the pedestal. Stop him, Mailer roared. The mercenaries opened fire. Sarah moved. She was a wall of kinetic force, deflecting plasma bolts with her bare hands, screaming as the energy burned her skin. Rhea and Eldrin flanked her, creating a defensive perimeter. Noah reached the pedestal. He placed both hands on the sphere of light. Steward recognized the AI chirped. System critical. External override in progress. Override the override, Noah thought, closing his eyes. Connect me to the Nightwave. Warning. Nightwave is currently set to consume. Connection will result in immediate biotermination. Change the setting, Noah commanded. Set it to give. Error, command unknown. It is not a command, Noah shouted at the machine. It is a feeling. You are an anchor system. You were built by Elias Cade. He didn't build you to take. He built you to share. He visualized the feeling of a warm meal, the feeling of bandaging a cut finger, the feeling of holding a lantern against the dark. He poured every ounce of his humanity, his empathy, his stubborn, dry-humored love into the system. The purple light of the sphere flickered. It turned white, then gold. Sarah, Noah yelled over the roar of the battle. Connect, Sarah turned. She saw the golden light. She understood. She grabbed Mailer. Mailer had been preparing to strike her down, but she didn't block. She lunged forward and wrapped her arms around his charred skeletal body. What are you doing? Mailer hissed, trying to burn her with his aura. Get off me! You are hungry, Mailer, Sarah whispered in his ear. Time to eat. She looked at Noah and nodded. Noah unleashed the flow. He didn't pull energy from the station. He reversed the polarity of the anchor. He took the infinite cosmic energy of the core, the power of the star Hallowspire orbited, and he funneled it through his own morality filter. He turned the raw power of the universe into protection, and he shoved it all into Sarah. Sarah became a conduit. She didn't absorb the power. She passed it on. She channeled the entire output of a star directly into Mailer Draith. "No," Mailer screamed. "Too much, it is too much." "It is not darkness you need," Sarah said, her eyes burning with a blinding white light. "It is light. Have it all." Mailer's body began to crack. The black energy of the night wave tried to consume the light, but there was simply too much of it. It was like trying to drink a tsunami. "I am the anchor," Noah screamed, his hands burning on the pedestal. "And this is my station. You don't get to eat my people." With a final shattering noise, Mailer exploded. He didn't detonate like a bomb. He disintegrated. The darkness was scoured away by the light, turning his physical form into harmless, glittering dust. The shock wave knocked everyone to the ground. The golden light expanded, filling the data temple, then shooting up through the shaft, up through the elevator, bursting out of the eclipse core in the upper decks. For a moment, the entire station of Hallowspire glowed like a second sun. Then silence. Noah woke up to the taste of copper and dust. He was lying on the floor of the temple. The red warning lights were gone. The sphere on the pedestal was humming a gentle, steady blue. "Noah." He turned his head. Sarah was crawling toward him. She looked terrible. Her jumpsuit was in tatters, her skin was gray, and she looked thin, as if the effort had burned away her reserves. But she was alive. "Did we win?" Noah rasped, sitting up painfully. "We didn't just win," Jax's voice came from behind the pedestal. The kid stood up, holding his drone, which was smoking slightly. "You guys just rebooted the entire station's operating system. The Anti-Noxian protocol's gone. The Nightwave code deleted. You basically just installed a galactic peace patch." Rhea and Eldrin were helping each other up. Eldrin looked at the pile of dust that used to be Mailer. "He is gone," Eldrin said. "The shadow has passed." Noah looked at Sarah. She was sitting back on her heels, watching him warily. "So," Noah said, wiping blood from his nose. "About that divorce," Sarah flinched. "I understand. I will pack my things. I can leave the station by tonight." "You are terrible at listening," Noah groaned, crawling over to her. "I was going to say about that divorce, it is going to be really hard to get one, since we just saved the galaxy together." Sarah blinked. "What?" "You lied to me," Noah said, reaching out to take her hand. Her skin was cold, but it warmed under his touch. "And I am still mad about the planned marriage thing. We are going to have a very long conversation about boundaries and honesty." He squeezed her hand. "But you also jumped on a grenade made of pure evil for me, so I think we can call it even." You still want me," Sarah whispered, "knowing what I am, the Scarlet Star." "I don't care about the star," Noah said. "I care about the wife who steals the covers. I care about Ceres, or Sarah, whoever you want to be, as long as you are mine." Sarah let out a sob that was half laugh, half cry. She threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. "I am yours," she promised. "Always." "Good." Noah kissed the top of her smoky, dust-covered hair. "Now, let's get out of this basement. I am starving, and if I don't get a burger in the next hour, I am going to bite someone." Sarah laughed, the sound echoing brightly in the ancient room. "I think that is my line." 6 months later. The Hallowspire station was different. Not in shape, but in spirit. The repair crews were still working on the damage from the incident, but the atmosphere of fear had evaporated. The Treaty of Hallowspire had been ratified, recognizing the rights of the Noxian people. The Umbra decks were no longer a ghetto. They were a cultural district bustling with tourists, curious about the Shadow People. In the center of the station, the Eclipse Core hummed with a new rhythm. It was a song of duality, 2 notes, one high and bright, one low and deep, harmonizing perfectly. In compartment 429, the morning sun of Javara streamed through the window. Noah Cade stood at the kitchen counter. He was wearing an apron that said, "Kiss the anchor." He was chopping vegetables. "Careful," a voice warned from the table. Noah looked back. Sarah was sitting there reading a data pad. She looked healthy. Her skin had a faint, pearlescent glow, and her eyes were a soft, contented gray. "I am a master of the blade, Sarah," Noah scoffed. "I defeated Mailer Draith. I can handle a cucumber." Snick. "Ow!" Noah dropped the knife. He grabbed his index finger. A bead of bright red blood welled up. "I told you," Sarah sighed, standing up. But the tension from 6 months ago was gone. She didn't freeze. She didn't look away. She walked over to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. She looked at the cut finger. "You really are clumsy," she teased. She took his hand. She didn't reach for the first aid kit. Instead, she lifted his finger to her lips. Noah watched her. He didn't pull away. He didn't feel fear. He felt a deep, abiding trust. Sarah's eyes flashed a brief, beautiful ruby red as she licked the drop of blood away. Her tongue was cool. The wound tingled and closed, instantly healed by her saliva. She looked up at him, her eyes turning back to gray, crinkling with amusement. "You taste like coffee and stubbornness." "And you taste like trouble," Noah smiled, leaning down to kiss her. They pulled apart as the door chimed. "Yo, pizza delivery," Jax's voice shouted from the hall. "And Auntie Rhea is here. She brought the terrifying fruitcake again." "Coming," Noah called out. He looked at the balcony before heading to the door. The eclipse lantern was still hanging there, spinning gently in the breeze. 6 months ago, they had turned the dark side out to hide. Now the lantern was spinning freely. But mostly, the golden side faced the station, casting a warm, inviting light. Noah took his wife's hand. "Ready for family dinner?" Sarah squeezed his fingers, her fangs flashing in a wide, genuine smile. "I am starving," she said. And together, they walked out of the kitchen, leaving the darkness behind, stepping into the light of a home they had built from the ashes of stars. The end.